87% of realtors get into the business and get out of the business in 2 years. That doesn't exist in our world.
We have massive visions around growing our businesses, and we are always looking to add talent to our world. We do everything in our power to ensure the people we surround ourselves with defy the odds, get into production, and build massive lives for themselves.
If you are a realtor looking to get into the business, we have a blueprint for success.
With locations all across Canada, reach out to us. Let's talk about partnership and opportunities. We are looking forward to it. Welcome to Sales Beast episode number 67, and today we are joined by Sammy Kohn. Really looking forward to getting to know you further. We've obviously got the opportunity to chat in the past. We follow each other on social, and you're doing some really cool things. So thanks for joining us on the podcast today.
My pleasure. And as I said to you guys off the air, nice job on the podcast. I'm a fan. So keep going. Keep it up.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
You bet.
We love having fans.
Really appreciate you joining us today. So
Yeah.
I don't know a ton about you, to be honest, but I did read your bio, and it was funny when you hopped on. The first thing I told you was I recognize you. So you're obviously doing a great job with social media. You got my attention. So in reading your bio, 27 million in volume last year, which is amazing. 20 years sales experience, which I assume is part of the reason why you were able to achieve that massive feat last year. And then former employee of Twitter and Spotify.
Right.
I can't wait to get into all that. So can you maybe take us back 20 years and share with us how you got started?
Yeah. I mean, I'll try to be as succinct as possible. I mean, my background is kind of different. I mean, I am a former professional musician. In my 20s, for about 11 years, I played in a band called The Watchmen, and we were quite popular in the 90s. We toured all over the world, Australia, Europe, US, Canada, etc. And I found myself, when that kind of ran its course, in a position where I sort of needed to reinvent myself. And I was of a certain age where going back to school full-time wasn't an option. I was married. I was about to have my first child. So I had some very sort of entry-level sales jobs at the time. I jumped into working for a weekly magazine here in Toronto, which led to a bit more of a sophisticated national magazine, which led to some work in tech. These were all media sales positions that sort of taught me about consultative selling, working with lots of different types of clients. And then about 12 years ago, I realized that I had a knack for selling, and a bit of a natural aptitude for it. I had been doing well in terms of every department I was in, so I decided to get my real estate license. And that quickly showed me that doing it sort of part-time wasn't an option. I was thinking I'd be that guy to make $50,000-$60,000 extra every year and sell a few houses, what have you. I quickly learned that to do it right, you have to sort of jump in full-time. And that's what I've been doing for about 5 years now. So just to answer your question specifically, Mike, I spent some time when I was in media working at Twitter Canada, and I can get into that a little bit further in terms of what the sales department was there, because it was a really, really phenomenal experience, and it really informed my work as a realtor right now. A lot of people say real estate it's not so much about selling, it's about people. And certainly it is about people and understanding and listening and empathy and whatnot. But make no mistake, this is a sales business, and I'm talking more about the work required on the back end in terms of acquiring clientele and cold calling and the skills required to make it in a business where you eat what you kill. So you could be the most charming guy in Canada, but if you don't have the work ethic and the chops to jump on the phones every day and manage a schedule where you need to acquire clients and work with clients, I think there's a huge risk of failure. So anyway, I'm kind of jumping all over the place. I hope that sort of gives you a little bit of background in terms of what I've been doing for the past 20 some odd years.
Yeah. To give you some credibility. I looked up the Watchmen before you came on. Very prominent band in Canada. As per Wikipedia, you're described as one of, I think it said one of the most commercially successful Canadian bands ever. Which is amazing.
The truth is, Mike, you're probably too young to remember this, but there was a time before Spotify and Napster where people sold records and toured, and we were sort of pre that time frame, which allowed us to actually acquire a very, very loyal fan base. And we still play about half a dozen shows every year to this day. We're not a full-time functioning band anymore. We all do different things. But what that also did for me, that also informed the work that I'm doing now. I was effectively an entrepreneur when I was in my 20s in this band, trying to kind of push things forward. I run the band's social media still, and put content out there, try to get the name out there. But I'm effectively selling the Watchmen as well, and I was doing that. So, everybody sort of, often people will say that everything kind of lines up, and you look back and nothing is sort of inconsequential, and you're where you need to be right now based on what you've done. And I really believe that's, in my case, to be true, because everything I have been doing, again, in the last 20 some odd years, or even more with the band, has been very important and invaluable to me being a successful realtor right now. So yeah, the Watchmen were a big part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a lot of successful musicians that have since become realtors join us on the podcast. And there's something about you guys. You guys are wired differently.
Well, I mean,
here's very well in the business.
The fact is, I wasn't going to go back to med school, and the barrier to entry for real estate is, and this is no secret, it's not that difficult. Certainly with the new courses in Toronto, it's not a piece of cake. But I think a lot of people do get into the business thinking they'll sort of kill it immediately. But it's hard. It's a really, really tough business that we're in, and I feel like realtors sort of often come with a lot of baggage based on what we have to deal with on a daily basis. You wake up and you're sort of unemployed every day, and you go on your social media. At least for me, I mean, I'm speaking for myself generally. There's a barrage of information telling me that most people fail in this business. 75% of people fail. There's 70,000 realtors in Toronto, and 20% of them do make real money, and the rest fail. And like, this is the kind of stuff that we're inundated with daily, and not to mention being marketed to in terms of get leads, get business, sign up here. These marketers prey on what I presume they feel is a vulnerable group of people looking to make a living, because it is so tough to earn people's businesses and compete with everybody that's out there. So it's not easy. But anyway, I'm not sure where I was going with that. It's a tough business for sure, and you have to have thick skin. And perhaps being a musician for me, where again I was self-employed, and kind of doing things a bit differently, it helped me in terms of where I am now. So I could see why there's a bit of a pattern there with some of your previous guests.
Well, yeah, like you mentioned it before, you were running your own business. The band was your business, and having to start from that, where a lot of people that do come into this industry have been more on the employee path rather than the self-employed path and aren't accustomed to it. But you already had that background and understood what it really took to build a brand, to build an identity from scratch. And then what I want to kind of focus on is obviously with the tech and the media sales background, that's what allowed you to grow as a sales and consultative, I guess, approach to your business. Would you agree?
Yeah, I definitely would agree. I mean, specifically when I was in tech at Twitter, that place was run like an army. I mean, I'm talking about some of the best salespeople I've ever surrounded myself with. And there were quotas that needed to be met quarterly. There were benchmarks that needed to be hit weekly. There were call lists that needed to be hit daily. So I take a lot of that information and I apply it to my business right now. I learned long ago, and you guys know this, that there's so much that's just wildly out of our control in the real estate business.
Mhm.
I mean, generally speaking, I could get philosophical here. In life, there's lots that's out of our control, but in real estate, the interest rates and the needs of our clients and buyers and the housing market in general, this is so out of our reach and out of our control. So what I learned long ago is what I can control, I'm going to just kill it when it comes to that. With
That's
my
amazing.
CRM, with my systems that I have in place, I'm running a lot of tech stuff on the back end of what I do, and a lot of it is automated. A lot of it is also kind of that personal touch, reminders, birthdays, anniversaries of people's closings, whatnot. I mean, I have a lot of systems that remind me of that, but I just feel like it would be really reckless of me not to have all that in place and look after what I can control, because so much of it is out of my control. And if I have a day where I hit a lot of sort of secondary objectives, obviously the objective is to close some business, earn a check. I mean, that's like, if brass taxes, let's earn commission based on buying and selling real estate. There's tons of secondary things that can be done every day that I try to tackle. And if I don't do that, I feel pretty shitty. Excuse my language, because it's something that it's just me being lazy. If I'm not making calls, if I'm not looking at the online leads that I work with, I'm not sifting through who I might be able to push to the next stage. I think in a very systematic, methodical way when it comes to selling. And I really think that a lot of that is because of the time I spent in tech, because they have it down to a science. They know where in the sales funnel things drop off and where they need to improve, and the time required to nurture clients, what happens once they're closed, and in terms of maintaining that business and working with them further, not just, okay, see you later, it's done. Retention, this is all very helpful and powerful stuff that I try to apply to my business today.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that sticks out to me there too is that, and we've talked about this before on other episodes, is like, we're really doing our clients a disservice by not having a system in place. If we're working off of our phone or an Excel spreadsheet, we're not really putting any systems in place that are creating a higher quality of service to our clients. And like all of the systems that you just mentioned, like focusing on retention, focusing on communication and, constant reminders and follow-up, we know that 80% of our clients are going to close in the follow-up process. So if we don't have a strong system or a strong methodology around how we're servicing those people, we're going to lose them to maybe the 80% of realtors that are part-time in the business, that are not focusing on actually, implementing high quality services to their clients. So what would you say is the number one thing that you kind of took away from Twitter that you now implement in your business?
Well, I think a lot of what I have been talking about, just as far as having some real systems in place, not just using email to just carve a path for myself. I have a funnel that I've set up for myself within the CRM that I use that sort of has different people at various stages in terms of where they're at, and it's got reminders in terms of when I can follow up with them. So it's a business. I mean, listen, the fact is, there's a lot of us in this business, and that seems to be a through line here as far as what we're talking about. And it's always in the back of my mind how I can set myself apart in this business. It's always been a challenge of mine, because early on, and I still feel this to a certain extent, if somebody tells me that what I'm doing is a commodity, what are you doing this different? What's your brokerage doing this different? What can you offer this different? I'm sometimes sort of stuck on an answer. I'm not just going to jump to, oh, well, I can offer you 1% commission. I mean, what does that do? That's nothing. But the hardest thing in our business is setting yourself apart in a very crowded, saturated business. So to your point, Anna, if I could be really buttoned down in terms of the systems I have in place on the back end, that will just organically amount to really good work with my clients. It's not something they see necessarily, but they feel it. They know that they trust me and they know that I'm on top of it because I don't let stuff fall through the cracks to the best of my abilities. I run a fine line. I mean, I had somebody today tell me to F off. I'd been calling him too much. It was a lead I had in an online drip, and he saw my phone come up a few times, and you know, there's an old saying, you know, yes lives in the world of no. He hadn't said no to me. I had a few good conversations, but he finally lost his patience, and it you know, I walk a fine line because I feel like I always have to be building clientele and finding new pieces of business and working with people. And so that happens from time to time. You have to be very careful with that kind of work, but that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, I think sometimes I agree with you, our industry is very crowded. You mentioned something about the barriers to entry in our industry. They're basically non-existent. For that reason, in my experience, the quality of the average realtor is not overly high. And we have an extreme source of competitive advantage through doing what it seems like you do, and that's just showing up and doing what you say you're going to do every single time. If you're going to call someone Thursday at 3 and you tell them that, you call them Thursday at 3.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like that's what's setting you apart. It's something Anna and I have been talking about a lot as you move into this shift. Just get back to the fundamentals.
Yeah.
Talk to people, let people know you exist. Talk to buyers and sellers. It's really that simple.
Yeah.
I imagine those fundamentals had to have started when you were in music. So I have an aunt and uncle, they're jazz musicians in Montreal, and they practice over and over and over and over and over. I used to hear my grandmother complain about when they were children. You'd hear the trumpet going and the sax going until midnight sometimes because we were practicing so much. It's probably very boring, I would think, after a while. Very much like our industry. Making calls over and over again, super mundane. But on the other side of that mundane work, you will over time access a beautiful business like the one you have today.
Yeah, I mean, look, I to say that I have a beautiful business, I appreciate the sentiment, but the truth is, I'm always grinding. It's hard. Last year I had a great year. It's a roller coaster, as we know. It is a particularly difficult time right now with what those external things are that we're facing, as we discussed earlier. That stuff that's kind of out of our control. But I don't have a plan B. I mean, my plan B is to work harder on plan A. And continue down this path. But yeah, you could look at music as being something that needs to be very disciplined to do it well. There's a parallel line in terms of a lot of people say they're musicians and call themselves musicians and say that they're pros. I did do it. I fulfilled sort of a dream in my 20s in terms of everything we did. I find I sort of have the best of both worlds now, and that I'm not tied to that as a career move because can be pretty precarious. But I get to do it as a wonderful sort of side hustle right now. There's a little bit of money there, and it's fun, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. But yeah, real estate's just sort of a 365-day a year thing for me right now, and I struggle with again a lot of the head game. I think the hardest thing that a lot of us face as realtors is that mental game, getting past that challenge of how difficult it is, and like I said earlier, the noise. We're all on social media, and the fact that I push out so much content that is about real estate, I get it all back in terms of what these algorithms think that I'm interested in. And it is what I'm interested in. And I get marketed to by so many different companies every day, offering me something that feels compelling, but is probably a bit of snake oil. So we just have to be careful. I don't know any other business where doctors, lawyers, firemen, whatever, where you're going to get constant ads of and reminders of how shitty people are doing in the industry.
And how crappy this market is, and just like all the negativity, right?
Yeah, and then we have to. This business is hard enough as it is to get our clients, Anna, with out of their, getting their head out of the sand in terms of the fear that's out there. I mean, not a day goes by in the last 6 months, when I haven't had to sort of try to tell somebody or give them a bit more of a well-rounded snapshot of the industry and what's happening, particularly in Toronto. It's not just blog.to as far as their source of truth.
Mhm.
I mean, so that's an extra layer of chat. It's hard enough as it is to get clients. Now we've got to sort of tell them that everything they're reading is hyperbole. It's tough. It's tough out there right now. So the stuff you guys are doing, I don't think you're getting big fat paychecks from doing the Sales Beast podcast every week. You're doing this because you're adding something very positive to our industry, and you're learning and you're growing and you're sharing that stuff, and there's reward in that alone in that, which is really important.
I think there's reward in putting your blinders on, like pretend you're a racehorse and you're just focused on looking at the finish line as a realtor, and that being like helping a family, helping an investor, whatever it is. But all of these like lead generation companies, mortgage brokers that want to get in your face, like just blocking them out and just focusing on what, like we said, what we can control, what are our benchmarks, what are our standards that we're setting for ourselves, and then making sure that our plan A is going to work out.
Yeah, and having weekly goals. I mean, I have daily sort of, not really affirmations, but there's things that I kind of write down every day in terms of sort of reminders of where I want to be. I do a lot of journaling to keep my head where it needs to be. And the blinders are, that's a good way to look at it. Just stay focused on the job, because it's just so easy to let the mental side of things get the best of you. It's really, really hard.
So you mentioned a few things like journaling and kind of setting goals on a daily, weekly basis. What are some other kind of habits that you've implemented in your lifestyle to keep your mindset positive and strong despite everything that we're hearing out there?
Well, simple journaling as often as I can. I've got something right here that sits on my desk, and it's old school. It's just I've got sort of a formula I follow based on some work I've done in the past with some people. So I do that. I start my day with a workout, which isn't exactly rocket science, but it clears my head and sort of sets the tone. I'm working out of a home office here, so it sort of creates a bit of a line from waking up in my work day, which I think is very important. And I try to get out. I try to network with other realtors as much as I can. And I time block. I mean, I've got time in my calendar for when I'm going to be prospecting, when I'm going to be cold calling. And again, I use an online lead gen company. I do some of that, so that takes up some of my time. So those are a few things that come to mind. I mean, I try to make a habit of doing all those things on a very regular basis. And then if all that is sort of smooth and all that's running, it feels sort of almost, it's even more rewarding when you're going to showings or you have a listing appointment. You just know that your systems are kind of in place and they're working and there's some momentum there, and you're also doing your job. So you're working, like they say, on your business and inside your business at the same time.
One great piece of advice you mentioned there was just focus on what you can control. I at one point in my career was horrible at that. But someone taught me focus on the inputs, not just the outputs.
Yeah.
Something I teach our agents all the time. I'll give you an example. We had a guy, he came back from a listing appointment the other day. He didn't sign it. Water bottle flying across the room, papers flying. He's so upset. And in my head, I was thinking, what if you got that upset when you didn't go to the gym in the morning when you said you were going to go to the gym, or you got that upset with yourself when you didn't make your calls or stick to your time blocks? And that was a shift I went through.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do to maybe detach yourself from the outcome and hold yourself highly accountable to what you say you're going to be doing on a daily basis?
Well, in all honesty, I mean, I may not be the best at many things, but I do pride myself on having a really good work ethic. I think that's something that is inherent to me in my upbringing, my parents. So it comes pretty natural to me as far as working with clients and kind of going overboard in terms of what they need. You know, there's something that a lot of people, I think, lack in this business, and that's an appreciation for the process. And that's also something I'm learning every day and trying to get better at. It's not just transactions. You have to enjoy the process a little bit as well. And that will be something a client feels. And that's something that will allow you as a realtor to grow your business further. Because it'll come off as being less sort of salesy. I mean, it's very, very easy to focus on a commission check, and that's going to be something very disruptive and frustrating to a client. Just focus on the process is really the toughest thing, and make no mistake, focusing on what we can't control and what we can. I mean, it's a daily grind for me to do that. It's something I work on all the time. And it's all relative. I mean, I've gotten frustrated over listing appointments not going as planned either, but 5 years ago, I was clamoring just to get listing appointments. If you got 5 listing appointments in a 2-week span, 3-week span, you're in good shape in this business. You're good. One of that'll close. One it'll land. Doesn't land that month. Maybe it'll land in 6 months from now. If you do it right, you're not going to hang up on the person and say, sorry, good luck, bye. You'll keep relations smooth. And who knows what I've had calls from people where things didn't go well with realtors, and they want me back to repitch or whatnot. It's all learning, and learning different types of styles out there, and figuring out why you didn't get a listing appointment. I didn't get a listing appointment a few weeks ago, and I'll tell you sort of a quick anecdote about it. I didn't get it because I kept sort of preemptively showing the client what I felt the place was worth based on certain comps, and he had a different idea. He was very it was very sort of bloated as far as what he thought, and we all know we have to manage clients' expectations and bring them back to 2023, etc. But there was such a divide between me trying desperately with the best of intentions to tell him realistically what he's going to get for his house, and him wanting a certain amount, and I was just pushing too hard, and I just I screwed it up. I mean, I'm not suggesting I should have said, okay, we'll go with your plan, and you're right, it's going to sell for $200,000 over market value. But I was sort of putting my stake in the ground a bit too affirmatively right out of the gates, and things went south as a result. So I wasn't really empathizing enough with him. I might have, perhaps I wasn't listening as well as I could have. And he kind of went with sort of a neighborhood expert who probably told him exactly what he wanted to hear. And so anyway, point being, I walked away, for about a day. I was mad. I didn't throw water bottles around, but I wasn't mad. I was frustrated, but you learn.
Kudos to you for actually reflecting on that and accepting responsibility. I know you line up 10 people, not even realtors. In that situation, they would blame the client for being unreasonable. But
yeah,
in my opinion, anytime we go on an appointment, we don't sign it, maybe because we don't allow the client the opportunity to self-discover what their home is worth. We don't ask the right questions. We don't build rapport we need in order to close the business. It's our fault.
Yeah,
100% of the time.
Yeah.
And if we don't accept responsibility like you did, you're never going to get better. You remind me, this is a compliment to you. You remind me of John Maxwell, who I heard speak a few weeks ago. And he basically said, your average person spends less than a couple hours a year reflecting.
Yeah.
I spend 2 hours a week reflecting on my life and what I need to do to get better. And I built a whole career out of that. If you just take a moment after you fail or succeed,
yeah,
listing appointment, buyer consult, offer presentation, whatever it may be, and think, what could I do next time to just get a little bit better and maybe have that deal go my way? It's gonna pay dividends.
Mm-hmm.
John Maxwell, is that his name?
Yeah.
I mean, for better or for worse, I'll often ask prospects because by the time it gets to a listing appointment, there's a lot of rapport that has been built. I've probably been in their house a couple of times, and I kind of assume the sale. But if I've got any sort of relationship with somebody, I'm sending them comps. I'm sending them competition in the area, just kind of nurturing things and showing them kind of how on top of it I'm going to be in the event they sort of quote unquote hire me. So by the time that they have to tell me that they're not working with me, it's not just a simple matter of them just ghosting me. It's usually, it feels like there really should be a conversation in place that okay, thank you. So I'll ask, I'll just say, I have kind of almost like a boilerplate email that I've sent where it's just like, I thought we had really a lot of momentum and a lot of great conversations. Can you tell me what it was that made you choose somebody else? And it's scary sending that out because you'll get some hard truth sometimes. It's like, sorry, Sammy, you were an asshole. I don't usually get that. It's usually just, you were a good guy and you knew what you were talking about, but we went with, it's often, for me, my biggest competition is usually we went with a neighborhood expert. Somebody comes in and knows the area. So that's very compelling for a seller, is somebody who can come up with stats in terms of what's happening in sort of maybe a mile radius of a house. That's hard to compete with. But you learn, if it's somebody who's offering 0.5% commission on a sale, maybe that's not something you want to be spending your time with in any event. I mean, it's just a race to the bottom in that regard. So, and that's not good selling. Discounting, that's not selling, that's discounting.
That kind of raises one of my favorite quotes. Like, I think it's like, price or money is negotiable in the absence of value. So I think we really have to figure out how to provide the most value prior to ever even meeting that person. It sounds like that's something that you do constantly, but even beyond that, how can we make sure that we're setting those expectations in a way that, like, it doesn't have to come to the listing presentation, that those expectations are already set. The client knows exactly what value we're going to provide, and ultimately we're able to get them, the best outcome or the best result for their property, whether it's a purchase or a sale.
And buyers too. I mean, it's right now, I'd say the ratio of buyers to sellers is weighed heavily on buyers. I have a listing next week, but I've got, several buyers right now. And I learned long ago that sending a BRA it's never worked for me. It's never worked for me. It's always put people's back up against the wall. And I've always had a hard time articulating what it is about a BRA that benefits the client. We learn in real estate school that, it's for their benefit and you're protecting them. It's like bullshit. It's like, it's a document to tie somebody up to a certain extent. I mean, this is being a little bit crass, but one thing I do, kind of your point, Anna, about offering and going kind of overboard and providing value, I will, if I've got a few showings under my belt with somebody, I'm not going to force them to sign a BRA. I've tried it and it just never goes well for some reason. There's always this like layer of resentment and a lack of trust that sort of seeps in when you have somebody sign a legal document. So I've got this really well constructed note that I put I put it on a PDF. I don't just send it in an email. I put it with a bit of letterhead and my logo, and it's kind of a letter of intent. Here's what I'm going to do as your buyer. I'm going to be negotiating and doing this, and this. This is not a legal document, but it is a document reflecting my intentions. And if anything changes on your end, all I ask is that you let me know. Just kind of expectations, in a bit more of a button down manner, other than just not mentioning it, because that doesn't always go well, where you don't even talk about the buyer client relationship. It's something between that and the BRA. And I'm kind of excited about it because it's just been something I've been doing for the past couple of months or so. And you can kind of cut and paste and just put somebody's name in there, but it's really powerful. They're like, okay, I get it. This is we have a client relationship here. It might not be something that ARIA wants me to do because they want people to have these BRAs signed, but I don't know. I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but I think what is foundational to what we're talking about is just a bit of extra service and professionalism is what I feel I'm trying to do in my business.
Well, yeah, I think in buyers' minds and like a lot of consumers' minds, like realtors are still not necessarily viewed as somebody that has their best interests at heart. So it's proposing them like, hey, let's work together. Let's have this relationship without them feeling like locked into something. I think that's a really great way to like start that partnership or start that relationship. Similarly, in the past with our team, we've done like guaranteed cancellation if we don't provide you the right service. Like we'll sign the contract today, but if for whatever reason you're not satisfied with our services, cancel anytime, no penalty, nothing, right? So it's just a different way to like create that view that we're not here to, take advantage of you or do something that's not going to be in your best interest. It's really just to protect our partnership together.
Yeah, and I'm a pro, and I want you to respect my time. You teach people how to treat you, so you want to push that message out there a little bit, not in an accusatory, argumentative way. I like that guaranteed cancellation. I mean, when I'm explaining the BRA to people, or when in the past when I used to, and they ask me about a holdover clause, I mean, it's like, how can anybody not get their back up against the wall when they look at, okay, but within 90 days of you seeing anything, you're going to have to pay me. And I mean, that it's just it's not cool, is what I'm getting at in layman's terms.
Yeah, I think often admitting what you mentioned there, Anna, I have a similar script, and it's letting them know what you will do throughout the process of working with them and how you will show up, but also making it clear to them that if you don't show up that way, you have every right to fire me. You have a script on, I say it every single listing presentation. This is what you can expect from me. This is how I'll show up. If at any point in time I don't behave that way, or you lose faith in me, I walked through the front door 20 minutes ago. I know exactly where it is. Feel free to escort me out. When you willingly say, I am ready to leave if I'm not right for you,
yeah,
I think that shows that you're putting their interests first ahead of yours. It's almost the opposite of what I used to have when I got into business, which was an extreme case of commission breath. So much more powerful if you can sit there, make it clear to them that you don't need their business. More than happy to help you, but I don't need you.
You have to feel that. It's one thing to say it, but if you're 3-4 months without a closing, it gets hard. And that's when you really need to have some practice in terms of walking away and trying to be impartial and guide somebody through a transaction where it's not necessarily something that's just simply in your best interest. It's something for them. And this is the kind of stuff that challenges me every day. I'm by no means an expert. It's just it's right in the front of my head, kind of on a daily basis. But I like that too, Mike. That's just again putting sort of some skin in the game and just saying there's nothing that you need to do other than say this isn't working, and then we'll shake hands and move on. You can feel that sometimes. Sometimes at the end of by the time it gets to a closing day or something, there's some of the familiarity that's crept in terms of the client and agent relationship. Things get a little testy, you've gotten very comfortable with that person. You've gone through a very emotional experience with them. You've seen the good, bad, and the ugly. You've seen the wife cry because of this, and the father, the husband get mad at you, and it's just it's heavy, So, but then it's important to sort of set the tone and forget about that, and that's another thing that I work on. If things didn't feel rosy on a closing day for some reason, because they don't always. Sometimes there's hiccups and lawyers, and this person failed to close, and it gets stressful. That's where the the work is also really important, and that's the sustainability and building on your sphere and getting a group of people who are going to support you in terms of your reputation. I've got sort of again, my lists, I've got sort of past clients on a list, and it's so important to be in touch with those people. I'm just starting to do this more prudently. I've got alerts in terms of everybody's street. And if something pops up on somebody's street a year after they closed on a home, and it's a house that's sold for more, I'm excited to send that information their way. It's not a full-blown CRM, just a little touch. Check this out. Look what's happening on this Sammy that sold 2 doors down from it, sold for $50,000 more than you paid. That's great stuff, So those people are as important as the people that are kind of right in front of us.
Everything that I'm kind of hearing comes back to one theme, and maybe you'll agree with me or maybe not, but it sounds like you're a very disciplined person, from the habits that you choose to put on, from how you start your morning to how you lead your day, and then even the follow-up process and how you deal with your clients after the fact, all have specific purposes and methodology. So, I mean, I feel like that probably starts from like early on in all of your experiences, but where do you think that disciplined mindset comes from?
Yeah, my wife would laugh if she heard you say that, because I'm pretty lazy and irresponsible in many other areas of my life. But I think that the fear of having this thing not work is overcome by the need to make it work. And the discomfort I might feel over making cold calls is trumped by my need to earn a living. So anything that involves me not doing that is replaced with how important it is for me to be good at this, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. And I feel good doing all I can to make this something really meaningful to me and my clientele. That sounds really sort of earnest and cheesy, but it's true. I mean, I suppose it's that fear of failure is really powerful.
Well, it's fear of discipline versus the fear of disappointment because you didn't do the things that you should be doing, right?
Yeah. And who am I going to blame? Who am I accountable? Everybody says you need a coach to be accountable. It's like, maybe some people struggle with that, where they're just like, I think I'm going to just stay in bed and watch Netflix instead. Like if I'm not at my computer by a certain time, I feel like shit. I know it. I need to do it to get through my day. And I don't have that problem, the accountability problem. It's enough for me to know that I've got a wife and 3 young kids, and I want to be proud of the work I'm doing and not have it just be something where I earn a paycheck from time to time and scrape by. These things are really, really important to me. So there's weaknesses in a lot of the work I do, but there's certainly, I don't feel like there's a weakness in terms of a coach needing to breathe down your neck as far as what have you done this week and show me what you've done, like that accountability thing that we always hear. So I'm not sure where it comes from.
Classic pain versus pleasure. Like it sounds you're running away from the pain you'll experience in the event that you don't do what you need to do in order to be successful. You're running towards the pleasure you will get from your successful business. I think the problem a lot of us have, especially younger people, they don't know how painful things can get if they don't show up today and put in the work. I imagine as a musician, I've never done it before, but I would think that's a very hard business. You probably had a taste when you were younger of how painful things could get. I know I did. And that's why every day I can show up. And that's my secret sauce. I think it sounds like it's yours. Show up and put in the work, and the deals come. That's what we can control.
Yeah. And it feels like a real grind. I mean, there's no question, but I'm certain a lot of realtors have an element of their personality, that entrepreneurial element, where they are kind of grinders, in a way. Grind sort of has a bit of a negative connotation. And there's a lot of people out there who are just allergic to selling and in the sales process. And I kind of, a lot of people in real estate, and I kind of understand that mentality. Nobody wants to feel like they're being sold to, and there's so many bad cliches when it comes to a lousy salesperson. But like I said earlier, I just think those chops are really important to have in place, and then you can kind of forget them. You have them in the back of your mind, and it's it's not like I don't use scripts. I have stuff that I've been doing, and it's this kind of built in over the years. Things that you could say. Yeah. Anyway, it could be complicated, or it can be easy. So I try to make it easy if I can.
I think my favorite quote from today was, "My plan B is to work harder on my plan A." That was so good.
It's the truth. I mean,
Yeah.
it's and that's where I failed, Anna. When I first took a pass at real estate about 12 years ago, I didn't really get it. My heart was not fully into it. I got my license, and I just didn't dig into it fully. And I mean, who would want to work with a part-time realtor? I mean, I just, if you're buying a house, don't you want somebody who lives and breathes this stuff every day? But it's the truth. You have to keep going. And right now is a time, I think, in a lot of the lives of our colleagues, where we're kind of swimming through a tough river right now, and to get to the other side. Because last year was such an anomaly, with money being just nothing to borrow it, and COVID threw everything sort of into a tailspin. This is a real kind of reset as far as the market is concerned.
Well, it's a make it or break it time. We have a large portion of our industry exiting soon into retirement, if they even can retire. And so now it's time to really take market share and focus on the skills and all the things that we've been talking about on this episode today. So Sammy, we're getting to that time to start wrapping it up. But before we let you go, we're going to ask you the question that we ask all of our guests. Who do you know that we should have on this podcast?
Who do I know? You mean, does it have to be a realtor?
Not necessarily.
Who do I know that you don't know? My God, it's a tough one. Yeah, okay, I've got a good one. I've got a really good one. Okay. And she's gonna love me for this. Did you guys know Madeline Towns?
Oh yeah, I know Madeline from Hamilton.
Yes.
Yeah, we've done business with her before.
Madeline is somebody who I discovered, it must have been on TikTok. This year, my goal is to do a TikTok video once a week. Every week, I want to do a TikTok video. It's an area where I'm a little bit uncomfortable being in front of a camera and being articulate and not looking like a weirdo. And I'm pushing myself to do that. And I was very inspired by Madeline Towns. The first time I saw her was a couple years ago, and it was this kind of blooper reel. And she looked really, really cute. And she said she dropped a few F-bombs or something. And it was just something that she had posted that really showed her personality. It wasn't just, here's my new listing and let's do a quick walkthrough and the 150-foot lot and all that boring stuff. So I think she's really done very well in terms of building a very, very compelling and interesting TikTok channel. So she'd be a great person to talk to about that if she's willing to sort of share her secrets. I know that she's quite confident and really vocal about how she had a lot of naysayers comment and chirp in when she was first starting on TikTok about it. Nobody's going to take you seriously, and this is not what real estate is. And she's, according to her, I've done some work with her. I did some referral business with her last year, 2 deals we did together. She's told me she's gotten lots of business from TikTok because of her stuff. So yeah, that's who I would recommend. Have you had her on the podcast?
No, we haven't actually. I'll reach out to her. We were just texting because her car got broken into and mine did too in Hamilton. So I'll reach out to her.
Are you in Hamilton?
I used to be.
Okay.
Mike's in Hamilton. I'm in Vaughan now.
Okay. I got my car stolen about 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's happening so frequently. It's crazy.
Brutal. So yeah, definitely mention my name to Madeline. She's great, and I'd love to see her on your podcast.
Sounds great. Well, thanks, Sammy. Any final words or any final questions for me, Mike?
I think that's it. Really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, that was fun, guys. Keep doing your thing. Thanks for letting me blather on incessantly. And once you, like I said, tag me on this stuff and I'll share it to my socials too, and we'll get the word out there for you. Okay.
For sure.
Amazing.
Every day I'm hustling, every day I'm hustling, every day I'm hustling, every day